Hello and welcome and namaste from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Ousted Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is sentenced to death over alleged crimes against humanity in absentia by a tribunal. Sheikh Hasina rejects all allegations, calls the tribunal's verdict biased and politically motivated. Says given no fair chance to defend her case in court. France's Macron and Ukraine's Zelenskyy sign an accord on Monday for Kyiv to acquire up to 100 Rafale fighter jets and other hardware, boosting Ukraine's fight against Russia's assault. And Taiwan says regional peace severely impacted by China and its row with Japan over the island territory. President Lai Ching-te asks Beijing to show restraint. First up, Bangladesh's International Crimes Tribunal has sentenced former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to death for crimes against humanity on Monday. A 453-page judgment read aloud for more than an hour concluded a month-long trial which found Hasina guilty on 3 charges. The tribunal, led by Justice Mohammad Ghulam Murtaza Majumdar, also delivered its ruling against 2 of Hasina's close associates, former Home Minister Asaduzzaman Khan Kamal and former police chief Chaudhry Abdullah Al Mamoon. According to the court, all 3 worked together to carry out atrocities aimed at killing protesters across the country. The trial had officially begun on the 1st of June this year by the International Crimes Tribunal in Dhaka. And the tribunal formally indicted Hasina and the others on the 10th of July earlier this year. And Sheikh Hasina herself has denounced the guilty verdict and the death sentence which has been handed down to her in a crimes against humanity trial, calling the ruling biased and politically motivated. In a statement, Sheikh Hasina said that the verdicts announced against me have been made by a rigged tribunal established and presided over by an unelected government with no democratic mandate. They are biased and politically motivated. For the record, I wholly deny the accusations that have been made against me in the ICT. I was given no fair chance to defend myself in court, nor even to have lawyers of my own choice represent me in absentia. I am not afraid to face my accusers in a proper tribunal where the evidence can be weighed and tested fairly. That is why I have repeatedly challenged the interim government to bring these charges before the International Criminal Court in The Hague. The interim government will not accept this challenge because it knows that the ICC would acquit me. The ICT's prosecutors produced no persuasive evidence to show that I ordered the use of lethal force against the people. Transcripts and audio files cited as evidence are fragmentary and have been taken out of context. Meanwhile, India's Ministry of External Affairs has issued a statement regarding the recent verdict in Bangladesh. India's External Affairs Ministry said, and I quote, India has noted the verdict announced by the International Crimes Tribunal of Bangladesh concerning former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. As a close neighbor, India remains committed to the best interests of the people of Bangladesh, including in peace, democracy, inclusion and stability in that country. We will always engage constructively with all stakeholders to that end. Let me now take you across to DD India's Naval Singh Parmar over the phone from Dhaka for more on this situation. Now, how has this verdict or the ICT verdict been received at large in Bangladesh, Naval Singh? Because Sheikh Hasina and her supporters are clearly against it, and we believe that even before this verdict came out, there was a situation which had become pretty tenuous once again in Bangladesh.
In Bangladesh, though Awami League is main political party now after the interim government took over the reins in Bangladesh, but still Awami League is having a huge support base in Bangladesh, though its leaders and senior Politburo members of the party are in exile or in underground condition, but the common people and the sympathizer and the small worker of the Awami League party, they are quite worried about the today's development, and there is a huge sympathy for the Awami League party as well as Sheikh Hasina. And meanwhile, there were many incidents of violence, arson, and the crude bomb bursting in the last week as well as in last 2 days also. So, due to the law and order situation, interim government deployed huge law enforcement agencies, including REB, BGB, Border Guard Bangladesh, and the army also. Situation is tense and security is heightened. But common people fears that something unwanted may happen in aftermath the judgment against the Sheikh Hasina. And there is a call given by the Awami League for the ban in the Bangladesh yesterday as well as today. So Awami League supporter and sympathizer are observing the ban, and the common people and other people who fears that there may be some unwanted incidents. So people are not much on the street and roads. So roads and street in Dhaka seems deserted since today morning.
Right. Now, this politics of retribution that played out even after Sheikh Hasina was ousted, do you think that we see a reflection of that now as well, and which could again derail the situation in the country, in our neighborhood?
As there is an announcement from the chief advisor's office that there will be election in first half of the February, and political situation is very tense. Apart from Awami League, the Jamaat-e-Islami and Bangladesh Nationalist Party are also on loggerhead on the various issues, political issues, and they are accusing each other as well as the interim government for the bipartisan activities. So there is a dearth of trust among the remaining political parties in Bangladesh who are against the Awami League. So politically, the Bangladesh passing through the crisis time, and this verdict surely will have a major implication on the political scenario in Bangladesh in coming days.
All right. Now, let's leave it there for the moment, and let's hope that the situation remains under control in Bangladesh. Thanks for joining us. Now, the UN Security Council is due to vote Monday on a resolution endorsing US President Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan. Last week, the Americans officially launched negotiations within the 15-member council on a text which would follow up on a ceasefire in the 2-year conflict between Israel and the Hamas and endorse Trump's plan. A draft of the resolution welcomes the establishment of the Board of Peace, a transitional governing body for Gaza, which Trump would theoretically chair, with a mandate running until the end of 2027. It would authorize member states to form a temporary international stabilization force, which would work with Israel and Egypt and newly trained Palestinian police to help secure border areas and demilitarize the Gaza Strip. The United States and several Arab and Muslim majority nations, including Egypt, Saudi Arabia and Turkey, called upon the UN Security Council to quickly adopt the resolution. A senior Japanese diplomat, Masaki Kanai, arrived in Beijing on Monday in a bid to ease the escalating row between the two nations. Kanai, who heads the Foreign Ministry's Asia and Oceania Bureau, is set to meet his Chinese counterpart Liu Jinsong this week. He is expected to clarify that Prime Minister Takaichi's comments do not mark a shift in Japan's security policy, and to urge China to avoid actions which could further strain ties. Meanwhile, Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te has weighed in, accusing China of severely undermining regional peace through its confrontation with Japan.
China's mixed attacks against Japan has severely impacted peace and stability in the Asia-Pacific region. I urge the international community to continue to pay attention to the situation, and I call on China to show restraint, act like a major power, and not become the troublemaker in the region.
President Emmanuel Macron and Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelenskyy on Monday signed a letter of intent for Kyiv to acquire up to 100 Rafale fighter jets and other air defense hardware from French companies. That's what the French presidency said. The accord sets out possible future contracts for the acquisition by Ukraine of 100 Rafale fighter jets with their associated weapons, as well as a new generation SAMP-T air defense system under development, radar systems and drones. The letter of intent, which is not a purchase and sales contract, is projected to be realized over a time frame of about 10 years, added the French president. Later, Zelenskyy said he has signed a deal with France in Paris to acquire 100 Rafale fighter jets aimed at strengthening Ukraine's long-term military capacity against Russia's invasion. Discussions in recent weeks have focused on boosting Ukraine's air defenses, though questions remained over how much support France can provide amid its own political and budgetary constraints. U.S. President Trump on Sunday urged his fellow Republicans in Congress to vote for the release of files related to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, reversing his earlier resistance to such a move. Trump's post on his Truth Social platform came after House Speaker Mike Johnson said earlier that he believed a vote on releasing Justice Department documents in the Epstein case should help put to rest allegations that Trump had any connection to Epstein's abuse and trafficking of underage girls. Also, Trump late on Friday withdrew his support for Marjorie Taylor Greene, a U.S. House of Representatives member from Georgia, following her criticism of Republicans on certain issues, including the handling of the Epstein files. Marjorie Taylor Greene, a U.S. House of Representatives member from Georgia, had accused Democrats of pushing an Epstein hoax after emails emerged in which the disgraced financier suggested Trump knew about the girls. Greene said earlier that Trump's online criticism had unleashed a surge of threats directed at her. She attributed her split with the president to her support for releasing records related to the late financier and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. Chile's presidential election to go on a runoff vote in December after a first round produces no winner. New Zealand Trade Minister Todd McClay meets India's Minister Piyush Goyal in Mumbai. And England ends FIFA World Cup qualifiers campaign with a hard-earned win against Albania.
US launch a bombing campaign against Iran. The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you. You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, Chile's presidential election will go to a runoff vote in December between a Communist Party and a far-right candidate after the first round on Sunday produced no outright winner. The Communist Party's Jeanette Jara from the governing coalition narrowly won the first round, followed closely by far-right candidate Jose Antonio Cast. Jara vowed to strengthen immigration controls and pursue organized crime by lifting banking secrecy laws. Jara, who would become Chile's first Communist Party presidential finalist, promised to bolster police forces and implement preventive measures. Now, Chilean President Gabriel Boric congratulated both Jeanette Jara and Jose Antonio Cast after the two candidates advanced to the runoff. The results set up a December 14 runoff between the two political extremes. 8 candidates completed in Sunday's first round, though none achieved the 50% plus 1 vote needed to win outright. The campaign was dominated by voter concerns over crime and immigration, issues which have reshaped Chile's political landscape. Now, South Korea's defense ministry said on Monday that it has proposed talks with North Korea's military to discuss setting a clearer boundary along the military demarcation line between the two Koreas to avoid the risk of potential military clashes. South Korea's deputy defense minister said that while North has been setting up barbed wire fences on its side of the border, some of its soldiers had repeatedly intruded onto the South Korean side, raising concerns about a potential clash.
Repeated incursions across the MDL by North Korean military and our military's responses in accordance with established procedures have heightened tensions within the demilitarized zone. There is growing concern that if this situation persists, it could escalate into a military clash between the two Koreas.
Now, India's electronics push gains momentum with the second ECMS tranche worth 7,100 crore Indian rupees, which has been approved. At a session in New Delhi, leaders in industry hailed the scheme's role in boosting high-value component manufacturing, strengthening supply chains and positioning India as a trusted global hub in the journey towards becoming a true product nation. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya files this report.
India's electronics story is entering a new era, one driven by ambition, innovation and a powerful policy push. The Electronics Component Manufacturing Scheme, or ECMS, is accelerating India's journey from vision to commitment. With a second tranche of approvals worth over 7,100 crore rupees, the nation is firmly stepping into high-value component manufacturing, from HDI and multi-layer PCBs to camera modules, copper-clad laminates, and passive components. At an event in New Delhi, graced by Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav and Minister of State Jatin Prasada, and Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology officials, India unveiled the roadmap of the future.
We focused on certain specific components rather than spreading it thin. We focused on a set of components which are very critical for a long-term growth of the electronics manufacturing ecosystem. With that, the ECMS was conceived, approved by Honorable Prime Minister, and then finally it was rolled out very recently, and I am glad that the team is working so hard that practically every week new approvals are happening.
ECMS doesn't stand alone. It integrates seamlessly with India's broader vision, the Electronics Manufacturing PLI, the Indian Semiconductor Mission, the DLI scheme for fabless design, and RDI initiatives that power next-gen research and innovation. Together, they complete a full value chain, materials to components, chips to device, and design to manufacturing.
My first ask is development team, second ask is quality, and third ask is, as far as possible, for everything that you use in your factory, in your plant, in your laboratory, get Swadeshi, get Atmanirbharta. Focus on developing Indian suppliers. Make sure that they also come up to quality levels. Make sure that you hold hands and get them up the value chain. That will define your success in the coming years.
India is not just participating in the global electronics revolution, it is positioning itself as a trusted hub and an emerging product nation for the world. Tapas Bhattacharya's report for DD India.
And there's sad news coming in from Saudi Arabia's Medina. Several Umrah pilgrims from India are feared dead after a bus travelling from Mecca to Medina collided with a diesel tanker in Saudi Arabia on early Monday. Some of the pilgrims were reportedly from the Indian southern city of Hyderabad. Telangana Chief Minister Revant Reddy has expressed shock and set up a control room for assistance. The Chief Minister has directed State Chief Secretary and Telangana DGP to immediately gather details of the victims and confirm how many were from Telangana. He has also instructed officials to coordinate with the Ministry of External Affairs and the Saudi Embassy for urgent relief measures. The number of the control room at the State Secretariat, there are two of them in fact, are +91 79979 59754 and +91 99129 19545. Now, President Murmu has also expressed her condolences on the tragic bus accident in Saudi Arabia's Medina, which resulted in the loss of many lives. President Draupadi Murmu said on X in a post, and I quote, "Extremely sad to know about the unfortunate loss of lives of many Indian nationals in a tragic bus accident in Medina, Saudi Arabia. My deepest condolences to the bereaved families. I pray for speedy recovery of the injured." End quote. Prime Minister Modi has also expressed grief on the loss of lives in Medina incident. Speaking, taking to in fact social media X, Prime Minister Modi said, and I quote again, "Deeply saddened by the accident in Medina involving Indian nationals. My thoughts are with the families who have lost their loved ones. I pray for the swift recovery of all those injured. Our embassy in Riyadh and consulate in Jeddah are providing all possible assistance. Our officials are also in close contact with Saudi Arabian authorities." End quote. Now, in the Delhi car bomb blast case, National Investigation Agency has been granted a 10-day custody of the Delhi blast suicide bombers co-conspirator Amir Rashid Ali by the Patiala House Court in Delhi. Ali, who was arrested by the National Investigation Agency on Sunday, was brought to Patiala House Court in Delhi today. According to the agency, Kashmir resident Ali reportedly conspired with the alleged suicide bomber Umar Nabi to carry out the terror attack, which claimed at least 10 lives and left around 25 others injured. The NIA has examined 73 witnesses so far, including those injured in the blast. The agency is working in close coordination with the Delhi Police, the Jammu and Kashmir Police, Haryana Police, Uttar Pradesh Police and other sister agencies. The agency said that it is pursuing multiple leads to unearth the larger conspiracy behind the bombing and identify others involved in the case. New Zealand's Minister for Trade and Investment Todd McClay met with Union Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal in Mumbai. McClay's visit comes shortly after Minister Goyal's successful trip to New Zealand, where the fourth round of India-New Zealand FTA negotiations concluded on a positive note. Both the sides expressed renewed optimism about advancing talks aimed at boosting trade, investment and economic cooperation. The day began with McClay serving as chief guest at the inauguration of a cricket tournament in Mumbai, an event symbolic of the shared passion for the sport between India and New Zealand. Speaking at the event, Minister Piyush Goyal said that both the nations are working to create a framework in investment, tourism and sports.
It is well known as a sporting nation. Sports and tourism go hand in hand. And Minister Todd and I have been discussing how we can promote sports in both countries.
And if we talk about sports, well, England captain Harry Kane scored a late double as his side completed a record-setting FIFA World Cup qualification campaign with a hard-earned 2-0 victory away to Albania on Sunday. It proved to be a stern test for the Three Lions, but once again it was Captain Kane who delivered when required to take his international tally to 78 goals from 112 games. England also became just the fifth European team to qualify for a World Cup with a 100% record after finishing Group K with a maximum 24 points from its 8 games. Portugal also clinched their 9th World Cup berth by dominating Armenia 9-1 in Porto on Sunday, completing a perfect Group F qualifying campaign under coach Roberto Martinez. Bruno Fernandes and Joao Neves each scored hat-tricks to fuel the rout despite Cristiano Ronaldo's suspension, paving the way for his record 6th tournament appearance in 2026 across the United States, Canada and Mexico. The victory highlights the team's depth, blending veterans and young talent like 20-year-old Neves. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. Just scan the QR code on the screen to download the app right away. And we'll be back with more news at a break here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.